Are we ready? Okay, great. Let me then go ahead and call the October 8th, 2024 Trinidad City Council meeting to order. And please let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice. So, excuse me. So I wanted to mention that Councilor West will be joining us at 6:30. So in about 30 minutes. I also wanted to mention that the council had a closed session interviewing one of the candidates for the city manager, but no decision has been made as of yet. We have another interview tomorrow, and then we'll be hoping to finalize in the next week. So with that, I will have reconvened into open session, and we will begin by approving tonight's agenda. So I'll start with the council. Any questions or comments about tonight's agenda? Okay, members of the public, are there any comments or questions or concerns about tonight's agenda that you'd like us to address? Do we want to talk about the public comment that we received about one of the items on tonight's agenda, or shall we? We can do it. Wait until we get to that item. Okay. All right. So we will go ahead and bring it back to the council.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. Seconded, and all those in favor? Aye. And then we had minutes from the September 24th meeting. Any questions or comments from the council on those? Right, I had no changes either. So any public questions or comments on the September 24th minutes? All right, seeing none, let's bring it back to the council. So
move to approve the minutes from September 24th.
Okay, and I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next is any council reports or committee assignments. So we'll do the round robin with the council. I'll start with you, Katie.
Nothing to report.
Okay.
Nothing to report over here.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
And I have nothing to report. Although one more time, I will announce that the Community Emergency Response Team is having a training this Sunday from noon to 4. And you can find information on the website, and the training is for CPR. You can get your CPR certification. You'll have to pay a fee to get the certification, but the training is free. And then it's also Stop the Bleed. And
is that here?
Yes, that will be. Thank you. Yes, here in the town hall, noon to 4, free training. You know, really important if you want to save lives. Okay, let's move on then to. I assume there's no public comments or questions because we didn't really have very many council reports. So I'm going to move on then to staff reports and turn it over to the city manager and also to Lieutenant McCall of Humboldt County Sheriff's Department.
And Lieutenant McCall is online, so I'll turn it over to him first.
Thank you. Good evening. So I have stats for September. This is just for the city of Trinidad proper. I'm having computer issues, so I wasn't able to pull up the greater Trinidad area stats again. I think that happened last meeting as well. Gotta love technology sometimes. But for Trinidad itself, excuse me, the September incidents, total of 31. That was down from the August incidents by about 20. I think we had about 50, various calls for service and incidents in the city in August. So that went down a good chunk, which is usually a nice thing to see. The biggest thing we had here was Trinidad Patrol. So typically that's just going to be deputies logging the fact that they're cruising through Trinidad. So that is, again, good to see that they're making the rounds through there. And I'm going to guess that even though they had 9 of those logged, there was probably definitely some others that were done that just they don't always get marked in there. So A couple of animal problems, a couple of patrol checks, a couple of public assist or transfers to other agencies. Everything else, we had like one call each of a bunch of various, types. Nothing that I see on here that's too significant. We had like an agency assist, an alarm call, a couple of civil dispute or custody dispute type calls, a couple general disturbances, parking violation, suspicious vehicle, one traffic accident, one vehicle burglary, and one welfare check. And there's a couple of other just nominal calls on here. There was like I said, one call for each of those type for the month. So overall, looks like it was a pretty decent month for Trinidad, which is always good to see. That's all I have for stats. I'm glad to hear you guys have a certain thing coming up this week. That's always a good thing, getting the community involved with all the preparedness, especially being so prone to the various natural disasters and stuff that we have in our area. So I'm happy to hear you guys have that coming up. And that's pretty much what I have, short of any questions for me.
I just have a quick question, and you may not know the answer to this one because it's something that happened recently, but we had an incident, we had several robberies late last week, and then a gentleman, a person of interest was arrested for possession of stolen items. And so apparently there's still some missing items, like some bicycles and things. And so I guess I was curious, if a member of the public has been robbed and they think maybe the perpetrator has been caught, do they just contact Humboldt County Sheriff's Office to get items returned, or?
Yeah, I mean, if they have an inkling that maybe that property, even if they're just curious, I guess, obviously it becomes hard when it's not serialized property. Obviously things with a serial number or an owner applied number that makes it very unique, makes it a lot easier because that's stuff that we can put in the system. So even if it's not our agency that recovers it, it could be recovered, in Santa Rosa. And if they have that number to put in, then as long as we have that entered and the person's given us that, then they basically have access to that and they can pull it right up. Obviously, a lot of your jewelry and stuff, especially if it's not like inscribed and other stuff like that's difficult just because it doesn't have that. But yeah, if somebody sees, especially something like that, where they see, hey, a burglary suspect's been arrested and they had a bunch of, their indication they had a bunch of property, and especially they think that maybe it's from their area, it definitely doesn't hurt to call and inquire.
Okay.
We do our best, obviously, to try and track that down, but it gets tough. You got different deputies working different shifts and not everybody knows everything of what's going on. And if you catch somebody 2 or 3 weeks later and maybe they have some property from something, if they weren't the ones that worked it themselves or it was pushed out in that format, which obviously if it's a lot of property, that's hard to brief everybody on everything. It could definitely, get missed at times. So it definitely doesn't hurt to inquire if somebody thinks that they maybe have that. We definitely want to do our best to try and get people back with their possessions.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the lieutenant of the call? Questions from the public? All right, I don't see any hands raised, so, did you hear someone? No, okay, all right. I think with that, we'll just thank you for your time and thanks for the good work, and I appreciate you arresting the person in question last Friday. That I'll mention his name offline. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant McCall. So the city manager's report in your packet, the water tank and pipeline project. So we're going to online notify the residents that somewhere around October 21st, we will be taking one of the water tanks offline, and it eventually will be replaced, but it's going to take a matter of approximately up to 3 months. So as a result, we're going to ask residents to conserve water in the coming months, since we'll be operating with one tank instead of two. Also, Edward Street, West Haven Drive, and a couple rough road sections of Scenic Drive were repaved last week. And then as far as the water plant, the Discharge in Luffenholtz Creek was 3.19 CFS on September 24th, which is still very good. Usually at this time of the year, we get close to 1. So 3 is very good. And then we do have some water plant employees who are going to be taking exams in the next month or so. And the Humboldt County Drought Task Force on October 3rd, the Humboldt County Drought Task Force did a presentation virtually to the partner agencies, which included the city of Trinidad. In there, they were talking about water shortage vulnerability areas in the county. There were 5 regions that they identified, and one of them was Trinidad. So the physical, part of the reason they identified Trinidad was not just the city of Trinidad, but also include the greater Trinidad area, because so many people are on wells. So that was like the bigger issue. And I do say in the report, there's a water shortage vulnerability due to a number of dry holes encountered when drilling for new wells in our area. And since I've been here, we've had a number of people, especially along Patrick's Point Drive, ask if they could be served with city water. So that's something for the city to consider into the future. We were able to take care of CAL FIRE, and you know, certainly there are some other locations of lawn there that could be considered in the future. Also, in that study, they said a physical vulnerability driver is the saltwater intrusion into the coastal aquifer from sea level rise. And the task force is scheduled to present short-term actions along with long-term strategies later this month or early November. Again, it will be virtual. And then tentatively in January, they will put out a draft drought resilience plan for the county. So just wanted you to be aware of those on the horizon. And then the last item I included there is SERA, our insurance provider. It's a joint powers authority. And they helped arrange a meeting with the small cities in Humboldt County, meaning Ferndale, Blue Lake, and Trinidad, to address potential scenarios that could improve law enforcement services within the region, either contractually or through a JPA. Police officers could serve the cities, the 3 cities, with patrols and boots on the ground. A similar arrangement was made in Marin County and also Lake County that Sarah had presented to us. And tentatively, we're planning a presentation at the next council meeting in November, where this concept could be brought forth to the council and the public for input. So I'll entertain any questions or comments anyone has.
I just have a quick comment that I think this work with Sarah on shared law enforcement services across Ferndale, Blue Lake, and Trinidad, to me, seems like a fabulous idea. It's been the #1 thing on the community surveys and different things, and what we all hear, right, is we want our police force back. And if this worked among the 3 cities, we would effectively have that. So I think so. I mean, we have Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, and you know, we know about that agreement. So and that's a wonderful thing. And we have private security now to augment, but this might take it to the next level. So thanks for looking into that. I think that's really could be good.
Thank you.
Pat, I have a question.
Yes.
The group that is investigating the drought, you said they're going to do a presentation. Is that at the city council or what?
No, they're doing it to the partner agencies, and it's virtually. I can ask, you know, who else could attend, but they had sent the invitation to the city manager. But I will see, especially if they end up holding, I think maybe in January, they might even hold it like live, for instance, at the Warfinger building or somewhere like that. But yeah, if I find out more details, I can share it with the council. And then Jack, you have.
Yeah, looks like we have 2 water plant operators that are going to be testing. What are they testing for? Is it a T2, T3?
Yeah, we have one for T3, one for T2, and one that's going to be taking the D2 distribution.
And are we providing any like study guides or courses or tutoring for the T3, the one that we really need?
Yeah, for both the T3 and T2, we pay for any training that they receive. For instance, through Sac State, they have a program, a course that's taken. And then we also pay for their transportation and their housing when they go to take the exam.
Great, thank you. Sure.
All right, any questions from the public on the staff report? Okay. With that, then I'm going to move on then to items from the floor. At this time, members of the public can comment on things that are not on tonight's agenda. Are there any items from the floor? Right, I don't see anything just yet, so I'm assuming that we'll have some comments as we go through the different items this evening. We have another action-packed agenda, and but before we get to that, we have the consent agenda. So, council, are you comfortable with the consent agenda? Any questions or comments on that? It really is what we just heard, plus the financial statement. So, okay. All right, we're good with that. How about members of the public? Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, then with that, I will go ahead and move to approve tonight's consent agenda. There is a second.
I'll second that.
All right, Jack Tuttle seconds. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, so we are moving right along. And I'm excited about our first topic. I'm excited about all our topics, but this is a one that is near and dear to our heart. This is a presentation discussion regarding the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail. And this is the conceptual redesign that has been worked on. And I think I referred to it a little clumsily in our last meeting as some work that was going on behind the scenes. And that may have been, misunderstood potentially by at least one member of the public. I did not mean there were closed door sessions. What I meant was that the Chiraya Ancestral Society has been working with GHD on a potential plan. And so we're grateful for that. And I'm looking forward to hearing about it. Eli, do you want to add anything before we turn it over to Sarah, to Lindgren?
No, not really. Gabe has the presentation. He'll put it up on the screen. And then Sarah is online and she will walk us through it. So Sarah Lindgren from the Chiraya Ancestral Society.
Hi, Sarah. And I guess before we get started too, while Gabe's pulling that up, I'd love to have you introduce yourself and then let us know if you want to take questions during the presentation or at the end, whatever works best for you. I know some presenters prefer to wait to the end, but let us know what works.
Hi, thank you so much. So I'm Sarah Lindgren Akana. I'm the secretary for the Chiraya Ancestral Society. And for anyone who doesn't know, maybe, or that's not familiar with the Chiraya Ancestral Society, we are the Yurok Indians that are from the village of Churai, which the city of Trinidad sits basically in kind of the nucleus of our village. So my family has been in the city of Trinidad since time immemorial. We never, relocated to anywhere else. We've always been a part of the community. And as such, my grandfather, his father, all worked to help preserve and teach our culture, to encourage others to help preserve just the part of the city that is the village. And through that, my grandfather, Axel Lindgren Jr., he helped create the Trinidad Museum and got the Native American artifacts put into the museum back, a really long time ago. And the canoe that's there was carved by him. It's also his picture that's above Murphy's Market, because he used to carve the canoes on the side of Main Street there, in the Saunders horse pasture. So for anyone who doesn't know who we are, that's kind of a really brief synopsis. The Churai Ancestral Society has been working since the early 80s to help preserve, maintain, and protect the Churai village. And part of that is the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail. So the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail is a cultural resource in and of itself because it's the ceremonial trail that the village used to use. So that's the traditional path. It's been there since time immemorial, since the village itself existed and since my people existed. And I apologize in advance. I'm getting over a really terrible cold, and that's why I couldn't be there in person tonight. So I hope you can hear me okay, and that that my voice will last for this presentation.
Sounds great. We can hear you very well. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So a while back, the hillside there, and especially sensitive areas along the bluff of Old Home Beach, began failing. And they were failing significantly. It was creating a dangerous situation for trail users. And so trail users of the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail began kind of making a voluntary trail around that bottom portion. So when the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail was kind of quote unquote officially installed with the new cable step system back in 1997, the bottom portion was rerouted kind of to, if you're looking at the ocean, it was rerouted to the left. Traditionally, that's not how the trail looked. Traditionally, the trail was routed to the right. But because of conditions at the time, it was going to cost more to route it to the right. So basically, what my grandfather was told at the time is that if he wanted the trail installed, it had to go to the left or it just wasn't going to happen. So rather than letting the trail be closed, he went ahead and kind of conceded to having the trail rerouted to that left. The problem with that is that it's not the traditional path, and we knew that it wasn't going to be sustainable forever. So in the Churai management plan, it talks about rerouting to that right. And this is something that we have discussed over the years because we knew that eventually that portion was going to fail because it's not part of the traditional path and it's not as stable. One thing we do know about the traditional path, and many geologists have weighed in on over the years, is that that traditional path is the most stable part of that bluff. So it was our goal, once this failure happened, was to reroute it to a more sustainable place that wasn't as sensitive. And that's the traditional path that takes off to the right. So in the maps here, in the, what, I'm not sure what page it is, but it does kind of show that portion at the bottom that I'm talking about, that as you're looking at the ocean, it goes towards the right. The issue that we're looking at now for a temporary reopening is that it's really brushy. It hasn't been maintained, and therefore it's pretty grown over, right? So over the years, yeah, that's the one. So at the very bottom there, you can see that there's the current path and then the traditional one. And excuse me, the traditional one is, like I said, it's pretty brushy. There's really small trees that have fallen down. There's, just trying to get through there is pretty tricky. So we contacted RCAA to see, and we, meaning the Tri Ancestral Society, contacted the RCAA to see if they could help us with a temporary reopening at that bottom portion. They were able to come out with us in the spring. We worked with the management team and with city staff, and we met at that bottom portion. They were able to walk it, and they found that the traditional path that would normally come out onto like a boulder there was no longer connected to the bluff. So we've talked about some options about how to bring people down to the beach from the trail safely and in a way that is sustainable, that won't cause further erosion, and that will do minimal harm. So the overall project here is a boardwalk style stair system. Right now, it's a cable step system that over the years, unfortunately, just because of kind of lack of care, has really failed. Every time a step was replaced, the cable system itself was cut, and then the steps, the redwood steps that my uncle donated would be put into the ground with rebar. But it didn't turn out to hold up very well. So there's, we looked at the option of just redoing the cable step system, but with the erosion that's happened, with the failures that have happened, we would have to do more ground disturbance. And it's just going to be at a great cost to the trail itself to try to redo what was done previously. So that's why we envisioned and worked with GHD on this boardwalk system. So at the bottom, what we are discussing now is some type of small bridge that would take people from the bluff to that boulder and then down onto the beach. We are also looking at a few other options that won't have a big impact to that toe of the bluff, because there are other trails around town, and the State Beach has trails, or the state side has trails that have step systems that work really, really well for them. And, through my actual profession, which is dealing with behavioral issues, we look at things through a behavioral analysis lens. And through that lens, we're taught behavior is the study of one. And when I look at the trail systems, I can't help but kind of think of that, right? Like in the trail systems, we have to look at them as individual trails. They're not all the same, right? So what worked for one trail may not work for this other trail. And what works for the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail is pretty specific, because we have soil conditions, we have erosion coming from the top, and we have wave action that's pretty significant coming from the bottom. So because of soil conditions, because of the nature of what's happening there, and then we also have to take into account that this isn't just a regular trail, it's a protected ceremonial trail. And so when we're trying to come up with ideas, we're being very specific for that reason. We're trying to make it so that it's not just kind of slapped together, lasts a year, creates more problems, and then we have to close it down again. When we open it, we want it to stay open. And that is our intent. So, we've been working really hard with trying to come up with creative ideas and sharing them with GHD to see what is feasible. So where we're at in the process is we're looking at a few steps here, right? Because this is a big project. And what we're looking at first is how to temporarily reopen the trail as long as we can find a sustainable way to reroute the bottom to the traditional path that's not going to cause further harm or destabilize the bluff any further. For that, we need to clear some brush, and we need to have RCAA come in, help us out with that, which the city just today let us know that the contract with the RCAA is ready. It hasn't been signed, but it is now ready. And that happened just really recently. So we're just waiting now on a government to government meeting with the Trinidad Rancheria that will give the final approval so that we can get started on that, which will probably be in about a month or so. The next part is we're going to be looking at getting long-term funding. So for that overall project, we're going to be applying for grants from the state because the California Coastal Conservancy has an easement across this trail for public access, cultural resources, and for special environmental. So what they're going to do is provide funding, but we just have to apply for it. So we're working with city staff to apply for that funding. And then if there's anything outstanding, then we'll continue to look for grants. But we're going to be doing this in smaller portions. So we may finish, a portion of the trail at a time until we finally get the whole thing done. Sorry, I've got my son here with me and he's chiming in the background. So I'm happy to take any questions. I know it's kind of a lot of information, and this is a pretty big packet with a pretty big project, but we'll try to stay as concise as possible.
Great. All right. I'll start with the council. Questions and comments for Sarah?
I have one. Hi, Sarah, this is Katie Breckenridge. So do I understand you're going to start with the foliage reduction? That would be the first step?
Yes, and there's currently a CDP for that vegetation removal, but like I said, we're just waiting on the requested government to government consultation from the Rancheria to get going.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we're gonna try to get that scheduled as quickly as possible so that we can move ahead and sign the agreement. We just wanted to be as inclusive as possible and make sure that everyone had a chance to weigh in. And so appreciate the patience on that while we go through that process. I know the staff have been primarily involved in the discussion, so they're up to speed, but any other questions from the council? I don't have any questions either. I think I understand the process. I think you laid it out very well, Sarah, and where you're at. And I know that the city needs to work closely with you on this. Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm just really appreciative of the presentation this evening and also really excited at the changes that are coming. It's been a long time and looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really, thank you for bringing all this together.
Thank you. We're super excited too, and we've, like I said, we've been, working on this, and we have been kind of chomping at the bit for the chance to be able to share it with the public, because this is something that I think that the community is invested in. And, with saying that, we are taking donations for this project too. So if if anyone feels so moved, and if this trail is important to you, and you have the ability, we are accepting donations for the project too.
I think that's a really good point, and maybe at some point we should discuss if there's some sort of fundraising that we could do collectively as a community to do outreach and to help assist with this project, because it is really exciting, and everybody's, as you know, has been, really, looking forward to hearing about the project and the direction it was going. So it's exciting to see it starting to come together. And, the comments, of course, that will, everybody would like it to go faster. I know you would like it to go faster. So we need to work together, continue to work together to try to help as much as we can. So, and that'll move things along. All right, I guess with that, let me open to public comment and questions. Please, Mr. Bruce is coming to the podium.
Thank you, Sarah. That was very good presentation. Really appreciate that. My question has to do with funding. It sounds, Sarah, like you have several grant options that are available. What's the realistic timeline for that grant funding that might be available? And I guess that question is both for Sarah and for Eli and the city staff.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So I'm not a grant writer, and that part is not really within my wheelhouse. However, that is what we are partnering with the city on specifically. And so with Angela and Becky helping us, we are going to be applying for grants that the California Coastal Conservancy has. And as far as timelines go, that would be definitely a better question for them.
Yeah, and I did speak with Angela today, and she couldn't attend the meeting, but she did want to basically reiterate what Sarah said, that they are going to be working on the Coastal Conservancy grant first, and then they will also be searching to see what other funding might be available that might be needed beyond the Coastal Conservancy.
My other question is, my basic reading of the GHD study, he added up what the planning costs were and what the three different options were in terms of construction costs. It was, in today's dollars, it looked like it's upwards of about $2 million. Is that kind of a realistic number from your view, Eli?
Yeah, it seems to be between 1.5 and 2 million when you include the engineering costs, and the 1.5 would be like redwood, and then the 2 million would be if it's like metal.
Right. Is that within the realm of reasonable expectations with the grants that are available?
That I'm not sure. We're going to be delving a little deeper. Staff has now gotten the report, so we can be working with that. So that will be very beneficial.
And the last question I have is, it looked like from the basic planning stages, 12 to 18 months out just from planning stages and engineering studies. Do those need to be done before the applications are made for grant funding?
That's the engineers because part of the funding will actually cover the engineering costs. Trevor's here, she might be able to add a little bit to that. But generally speaking, what we're going to be looking for is, in addition to this long-range plan, doing the short-term improvement so that we can get the trail open as soon as possible. So Steve Allen from GHD said that as soon as we do the vegetation cut, that he will either be there that day or be there right after that to be able to visualize exactly what may be needed between a bridge
At the bottom.
At the bottom, exactly, so that we can make that connection. And then Sarah has also indicated that we may look at some other short-term fix just to get it going as quick as possible, meaning possibly just allowing people to go to a designated part of the trail and where a bench would be and whatever, even as we're working to try to get the short-term fix so that then we can do the long-term. So,
That sounds,
yeah.
that sounds great. Well, thank you again, Sarah.
Okay, and then Trevor, did you have?
Yeah, I think, I think the first conservancy grant will be for, the plannings and engineering studies, that we'll need. So that'll be the first step. And I think we'll, might need multiple funding sources. I think there's a bond measure on the ballot coming up that I think, if it passes, I think that this overall construction project could be pretty competitive with some of the goals of what they're trying to do with that. But in the meantime, we'll be working on the getting some funding for the studies and permitting. And I would say 18 months seems about reasonable for that. But in the meantime,
I guess I would just add that there may be options for construction that are, could be done at a lower rate as well. So we haven't, looked at all the different options for the construction piece. And there may be some ability to, for example, work with California State Parks. This is, we'll broker a meeting between them and the Tri management team to see if it's of interest, but they would offer to partner on something, and they tend to be, I think, a little less expensive. And they have partnered well in the past on complex projects. The one at College Cove was an example. It's not at all what this project, it appears to be, a bit different and more, I think would require a little more sophistication of build and therefore could result in more costs, but they may have done similar projects. So it'll be great for the Tri management team to talk to them and see if that's of interest. So anyway, so we'll set that meeting up. Other comments or questions, please?
Hi, I'm Janine Pfeiffer. I'm an ethnoecologist and I work for the Tolwadini and the Yurok tribe, and I'm currently working Rancheria Heights Indian colony of the Trinidad Rancheria tribe. And recognizing that this trail and the lands are also within the ancestral lands of the Rancheria Heights Indian colony of Trinidad Rancheria, I'd be interested in knowing from the city council or from staff to what degree the tribal staff and leadership have been involved with the planning for this. And also, since they are the most proximate federally recognized tribe to the area, if they've also been approached for potentially helping to fund this project. And I'm just interested in learning more about that collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Staff, do you want to start, since Eli, have been working with the Tri management team? I don't think the council's been involved much the past year.
Actually, would it be okay if I gave my answer as well?
Yes. Do you want to start, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I know that the question wasn't directed at the Tri Ancestral Society, but I do want to clarify that, while the Trinidad Rancheria, not colony, but just Rancheria, is in close proximity to the city of Trinidad, it doesn't mean that the Yurok tribe is not the tribe of historic origin of this area, right? So the Yurok tribe is made up of Yurok people that are from the Yurok villages within the Yurok tribe's ancestral lands. And the Yurok tribe's ancestral lands extend south to Little River, which is the southern boundary for the Churai village. And that's where my family is from, right? The Churai village. We're also Yurok tribal members. And so when we're talking about complex things like consultation, then consultation is different than who's from where, right? So with consultation, that's something that is required under law. And the city, like we were talking about earlier, is setting up a government to government meeting so that the Trinidad Rancheria has the ability to be consulted about the project. But when we talk about ancestral ties, ancestral lands, then the Trinidad Rancheria is in close proximity because they occupy the land within the Churai village, right? So there's a lot of history there, and I really encourage you to look at books like The Four Ages of Churai, and pop into the Trinidad Museum, and just if you have a chance, talk with the Yurok tribe, talk with the Trinidad Rancheria. The Trinidad Rancheria is made up of several different tribes, not just the Yurok tribe. So, yeah, I think that there's an opportunity for education there. And as far as consultation, they'll be consulted as required under policy and under law. But as far as lineal descendancy or ancestral lands, that's the Yurok tribe, and we are the lineal descendants, and have proven that several times in court. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And Eli, did you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add that we have designated 2 council members to have that consultation in the G2G with the Trinidad Rancheria. And as was mentioned before, we're going to be looking for all kinds of sources for grant funding. So, any kind of donations are always welcome.
I think the part of the question maybe that I guess I would add to help answer a little bit is that there is a Churai management team, and those meetings have traditionally included 2 council members when it's not about specific cultural assets, and therefore should be closed. And so, I think the question was, part of the question was, has the Rancheria, for example, been involved in some of this planning? And I think the answer would be, in essence, for this part of it, not yet. But now the plan is being presented tonight, and then we will have the G2G meeting. So I think maybe that's a little bit, just to add a little more clarification on the question. So correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Can you remind us who the counselors that are on that G2G?
Yeah, the G2G to the Trinidad Rancheria will be Cheryl Kelly and Jack Tuttle.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And then, the other 2 G2Gs that we're planning with the Churai Ancestral Society and the Yurok tribe would be Steve Latwick and Jack West.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to, I guess the other point of clarification would be with this, that the plans that we're seeing tonight, this is the first, in this packet is the first of it Trinidad City Council has seen. Because there were some questions that came up last month about, had we been having discussions about these plans and so on in closed session or what have you. And I want to be really clear and transparent. That is not the case. I love these plans. This is the first time I'm seeing them. So. Okay. Other comments and questions from the public?
I have a comment. This is Robert Hempstead, Vice Chairman, Trinidad Rancheria.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd just like to clarify, I guess, listening to the conversation and the input given, and specifically, I guess, from Sarah. And, there's, say, contentious discussion, obvious litigation, there's history of litigation. But to speak of this is Yurok ancestral territory, I 100% agree with that. My family is that of Yurok ancestral descendancy. So you can't take that away from somebody or their people because their grandparents and great grandparents, right, decided to start a tribe 30 years, 40 years, much before legal federal recognition and the settlement came about, right, for the mile on each side of the territory in 87, 88. So when the families, much like that of her own, are somewhere they hold strong to that, right? And I think that doesn't change whether you have your people still. I think we're getting caught up in a name of a tribe or where it should be the ancestral origins of the people, right? I'm that of ancestral descendancy of Yurok and also Talawa through Smith River John, because you have like 12 families down there. But regardless of that, I just want to clarify I am that of Yurok descendancy, and I respect her input, but I wish to have more conversations. Maybe we can reach out and be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for your comment. And
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. This is Sarah again. And, I want to make it clear that we are in no way trying to prevent input from happening. But, we do obviously disagree. And I think that, the current litigation with the city and the Trinidad Rancheria and the Chari Ancestral Society and the state is a great place for us to be having this discussion. And we would love it if, the Rancheria would supply the documents that we've requested and participate in those discussions, because I think that is the place to settle this. And, we want to take care of our village, and we want to be able to do that in a good way and not constantly kind of have this like horn locking situation happening. And I'm sure that, you guys would like to be able to, do your business and, be able to do the things that you want to do without locking horns with us too. And I think that the litigation is a great opportunity for that.
That is, yeah, that's a great point, and I think a good place to have that discussion. And I'm going to bring us back to the topic of the trail, and I know the two topics are interrelated, but I don't know that the city council will add any value in the discussion that we're having. And we try to add value. We don't always succeed, but we try. So let me go back to the public again for any other questions regarding the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail and the presentation that Sarah has given us this evening. Okay, please. Bryce Kenny would like to come to the podium. And I'm announcing because I'm not sure always people can see and hear well in the room. So
thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Sarah, for the presentation and thoughtful comments I've heard so far. As you know, I'm going to be one of your colleagues in the near future. So I'm very much looking forward to working with the council members who are going to be sticking around, and my congratulations to the ones who made it almost to the finish line. I'm sure we'll be seeing plenty of you. But as far as the design presentation, to me, it seems a little over the top as far as, it's a staircase essentially. I don't even think we could really call it a trail. It's built, anything similar to what the pictures show. And so it seems a little out of character with the natural surroundings and so forth. Certainly much more than the cable steps, which were the first iteration. For that, of course, it was just a dirt path. And the traditional people would just go straight up the hill. Very strong legs, of course, back in the old days. So it seems a little expensive and expensive to maintain, I think, also because of the weather, what it's going to have to endure and so forth. But I would like to shift for a second the council's attention to the bigger picture, which I think is, that 12.5 acres should be in tribal ownership. It's way overdue for to be actually owned by a tribe. So as you can see, the city is kind of caught in the middle of a kind of a competition between the Rancheria and the Yurok tribe over who's the most entitled to, claim that territory. And I can understand both positions. It's a really tough thing to try to figure out. But the Yurok tribe is the older tribe. It's larger, considerably larger, and all the momentum for many years has been to transfer title to the Yurok tribe, including the national plan.
And Bryce, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to try to keep the focus on the trail versus the transfer of the 12.5 acres, but we will at some point, hopefully have a discussion about the 12.5 acres. It's in litigation right now, so the council can't really comment.
Yeah, this is Robert. Sorry, I almost said Jane. I'm my business. Vice Chairman, just to clarify, he did misspeak on that. The Yurok tribe is not Yurok federally recognized tribe is not an older federally recognized tribe. And you can't say it's an older tribe because you're of Yurok descendancy. I'm of Yurok descendancy. It's since time immemorial all around. You can't. So for someone that doesn't understand or isn't educated to make statements of that significance, I think it's a viewpoint, and you're making inaccurate statements. But you can look up when the settlement was. You're very intelligent. I've had numerous interactions with you. I know you're very well educated. You should have that.
And that's one of the reasons I want to keep this conversation focused on the trail, because I don't think it'll be as productive otherwise. And I also want to really respect the work that the Tri Ancestral Society and the Tri Management team have done to bring this to the council. So, and
I don't want to get involved in politics by any means here. I think that the trail should be a discussion, but when people bring it up and make inaccurate statements, I have to say something. You know what I mean?
Why you would feel the need to respond, Robert. I do, and I appreciate that your understanding that I just need to try to keep this focused. Now, this is a public meeting, and I will ask everyone's indulgence because Bryce does have the right to speak on anything he wishes for 3 minutes, but we do try to keep it to the topic if we can. So,
well, let me
absolutely.
Back to you, Bryce.
Summarize by saying that, well, then my feeling is that the whole idea of constructing the new trail should follow the transfer of the property to some tribe. Because as it stands now, it's taking up way too much of our staff time, the bandwidth, the cost that could be spent on things. Like I said, we're stuck in the middle of something else that we should not even be involved in. And so,
okay, I appreciate that point of view, and I think we do need to, I'll find that.
I'm just about finished. And in the meantime, a simple repair to the very bottom of the trail, as the city has been doing for 15 years or more, 20 years, just to get it back in condition, so we can get it reopened, would be a very good thing to do. A simple thing. You could even have a big, thick rope at the bottom that people could hang on to for the last 15 or 20 feet. And you see that on other trails in this area. It's not an unusual.
So that was one of the things, just to jump in, as Sarah did mention, short term. And so we do need to talk about what that short-term model might be like. So that's a good point.
Absolutely, because there's no CDP in existence for having the trail closed. Right now, it's not a legal closure.
And then to your earlier point about the design, one question I was going to ask was and this may be for you, Sarah, or Eli, but I thought that the upper part of the trail was going to stay fairly similar to what it is now, and it was the bottom new rerouted portion that was going to be more engineered, or is it the entire trail?
It's the entire trail.
Okay.
So it's the entire trail, and there's a reason for that, right? And that's because, going back to what Bryce is talking about, the city has owned this property since 82, 83, and has done absolutely no repairs. has done nothing to maintain and has done nothing to upkeep the property. When there was concerns brought by the Ancestral Society, brought by LACO, brought by the Yurok tribe, and brought by the Tri Management Plan regarding failures, regarding sewage runoff, regarding saturation of the bluff coming from the top. There was nothing done to mitigate that, right? So this isn't failure of a trail of the last 10 years or even the last 15 or 20. This has been going on for almost 40 years, right? And in order to work through that and to be able to do this in a sustainable way, we have to now come in a bigger way, because it's not realistic to do a cable step system anymore, not in the current condition and not with the conditions that we were left to work with. And while I appreciate wanting to keep things simple, I think we're about 30 years too late for simple, because what we have inherited is a major problem. And we don't want to further destabilize the bluff. And I'm sure the people that use Edward Street and live along Edward Street don't want us to further destabilize the bluff. So we have been working very hard to find ways that, although it may be, it may seem over the top, we're looking to find ways to make this trail usable and sustainable over time without creating harm to the bluff, to the toe of the bluff. You know, we're looking at long-term here. And I think that that's something that has been missing from this site from the very beginning, is looking at long-term planning. It's always been, how can we do this in a quick fix and then transfer it off to a tribe? The problem is that it never ends up getting transferred, and you know, the can just continues to get kicked down the road. But how much more can we do that with, you know, the issues we're facing with climate change and with, you know, what we've seen with the recent studies? You know, we're not at a place where we can kick the can down the road any further. So if we want to use the trail, then we have to do this in a more thoughtful way that isn't going to leave it for, you know, the next group of people to inherit an even bigger problem. And so, you know, that's why we came to this decision, and we didn't do it by ourselves. You know, we're working with the engineers at GHD who, you know, are definitely smarter than I am, and smarter than, you know, any trail we could come up with. So these are not abnormal trails either. We actually grabbed these designs and grabbed the ideas from existing trails in similar conditions along the California coastline. So this is what other cities have done. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're borrowing great ideas from other people. So I hope that clarifies how we got here.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you. And I also read in the report that there's a need to protect the surrounding area because it's of cultural and spiritual significance. And so that also, I think, was part of the consideration of the design. At least that's what
it definitely was. And I think a great example of that is when we went down, the very first day we went down, because of the significant erosion that was happening, that we were actually called by citizens in town saying, hey, you know, the bluff is failing. You know, they were concerned. They called us. And so when we went down to look and see what was happening, there was people living in a tent on the trail itself, just set off to the side. And this has been a problem for years, is we actually have people living in the study area itself. That means people defecating in there. We found trash. We found beer bottles. Somebody in 2020 lost their dog in there for like a month. It was in the paper. So there's, this trail has concerns beyond just, how can we get it back open to the public? It's how can we make it safe again, and safe for the public to use and not continuously create further harm. So that is, thank you, Mayor, for bringing it up. And that is part of the reason why, we chose these designs, because it really helps people stay on the trail itself.
I have another public comment. Eli, did you want to say something before I?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that. So the picture that we have up there is actually the rendering of what the trail is proposed. We did show a few other pictures, but those were just pictures of ideas that exist other places that were brought forward to the engineers in the process of making this design. But this design is actually quite similar to what is currently there, only it does create like a boardwalk, but it takes the same path basically, where you do have some steps and then you have like a little longer area and then a couple more steps and a longer area, versus some of the other pictures actually look more like a staircase. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, and I believe, Jackie, are you still on? And I believe you wanted to make a comment, Hostler Comerson from the Rancheria. Jackie, are you still there? I know you raised your hand a bit ago and we've been talking a bit, but.
She might have actually logged off. This is Robert. I know she had some work for the Fish and Game Commission this evening. She starts her meetings tomorrow morning.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure we didn't blast past because she was trying to let us know she wanted to comment. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, other comments, questions regarding the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail? All right, I think, I just want to say thank you very much to the Tri management team and to Taz in particular and Sarah for presenting the work to us tonight. And it looks great and we will do everything we can to support it to come to fruition with speed and
Money.
And money. Yeah, that's I was looking for the word. Funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for hearing us tonight, for letting us do this presentation, and thank you, staff, for working with us. We really appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to everyone that gave a public comment, because I think, we really want your feedback. We want to know what the town is thinking, what the community is thinking, because this trail is for the community. And that's, why my grandpa fought so hard to make it a legal trail, because he wanted it for the community and we want to continue that. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming out, and thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. All right, with that, we are moving on to another trail topic. So this is the discussion decision regarding the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial to extend the temporary closure of the Van Wyck Trail. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Eli, and I don't know if you want to, I know we had some earlier discussion about the item itself, and then we could go to the item if you like.
Okay, yeah, that would be fine. So first of all, Trevor did prepare a 3-page report for this item to clarify. And then at the same time, I do have a letter that's in there where I requested that this item come to the city council. We had talked with our city attorney, and he determined that I would be a proper party to address this. I did put in front of the council the code section, which the wording that our attorney had pointed out was that it does say may be appealed to the city council by those interested persons who have communicated their comments at the Planning Commission hearing. And and he said that it's basically, it's saying interested persons. And as a result, it does not disqualify myself as a city employee or as a city manager. And said that the planning commission is an appointed body of the city council and facilitates appeals to the council in the CDP context, facilitates due process and open and transparent government. And person as defined in our code means any individual, public or private corporation, political subdivision, partnership, firm, trust, or estate. So anyway, it was made clear that because of the way the language is there, that I could appeal it to the council. And the main reason that I did want to have this appeal, that in talking with Trevor and also our city attorney, was in order to go ahead and hopefully allow us some time to finish the work we're currently on, which we're only requesting for 3 months. To the planning commission, we have requested 6 months. I think within 3 months and possibly even sooner, we can wrap this up. Part of it has to do with the G2G meetings that was mentioned. So we have both Steve and Jack West, who would be joining me to have a government-to-government meeting with the Yurok tribe, and also have a similar meeting with the Churai Ancestral Society regarding the Van Wyck Trail. And then we also got input from CIRA, which is our Insurance Joint Powers Authority. And that input has helped us see, what can be done to hopefully, have the trail open in some manner. And we would like to present and discuss with the G2G, and then bring that back to the council and have a meeting within the next month or two, where the council can address the Van Wyck Trail. I'll turn it over to Trevor. She can, weigh in on that.
I'll just say, I do understand the public's frustration. And staff are frustrated as well. We're not happy with these kind of serial closures. We feel a little bit like we're going in circles. But we also don't feel like we have much choice at this point. And we have been making progress. I know it's not always as fast as people would hope, but we are taking steps forward. And so, I am hopeful. I promised the planning commission that I wasn't going to come back with another one of these. So help. We're working really hard to make that happen. I don't know what the final outcome will be with the trail. We had a repair planned. That wasn't palatable either. So it's a complicated issue. Obviously, the Ancestral Society and the Yurok tribe want the trail to remain closed. That's another complicating factor. We have been working closely with Coastal Commission staff. And so we are making progress. The recent site visit with the insurance agent, I think, is promising. But currently that trail, I'll just remind you, it is excluded from the city's liability insurance. And so I think that's important for the city council to take into consideration coverage if that trail were reopened. So, and I think that the planning commission, has a number of concerns, but one of the reasons they made the decision that they did was in the hope that this would come back before you, because they want the city council, because this is a really a bigger issue than what the planning commission can address in terms of, prioritizing staffing and funding for these things. And I think the government to government meetings is a really important step in this process. So again, that is why the planning commission made the decisions, is to get it before you. They want you to understand the public's frustration and staff's frustration and make these trails a priority and keep them in the forefront of your mind. So that we are doing what we can. So yeah, so the staff recommendation is, we've revised that to 3 months. There is an allowance for another 3-month extension, but I've made the condition so that that is the only possible extension. And so after that, if we haven't figured out a solution by then it would have to be another CDP, which would be appealable to the Coastal Commission. So no one wants to get back into that cycle. And so that's what staff's recommending. Tends to go ahead and approve that 3-month extension of the closure.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with the council. Questions, comments?
I would just encourage the planning of that G2G as soon as possible. And not that I'm any more important than anyone else, but my schedule is heavily impacted right now. So I will move mountains out of my professional commitments to attend these G2Gs so that we can have some sort of completion of this. So I'm actually just like in the public record, please schedule this thing as soon as possible with the Iraq tribe so that we can move forward.
Since I'm the other part of that, I agree completely. Let's get it going.
Katie, did you want to? So I guess the only thing I have some hesitations. I think I want to hear public comments first, but my first hesitation is I think the G2Gs are very important, and I think we've had the discussions in the past. And for counselors that are new, I'll just remind everyone that back in 2019, the city had $714,000 to repair the Van Wyck Trail. We probably spent a good sum on planning and engineering and proposals. The Planning Commission voted, I think, 4-1 to accept the grant funding and move ahead with planning. At the time, the Planning Commission believed that the planning process could be iterative with the public and with the tribal entities at the table so that we could determine a way forward and leverage that money. And the City Council overturned the Planning Commission's vote. And they did that because there were a number of folks in town, including several of those who've made comments tonight about opening the trail, who did not want the funding, did not want to go down that path, and believed that it would be over-engineered if we did. And maybe they were right. We are where we are. So when we say, well, the trail's been closed for 5 years and nothing's been done, or 6 years or 7 years, I get personally a little frustrated because I was chair of the Planning Commission at the time, and I know that that's not true, that nothing has been done. So work was done, proposals were made, and it's been a very sticky situation. And I think from my understanding, Taz has weighed in. I don't know if Sarah's still on the call, but Taz has weighed in, the Iraq tribe has weighed in, saying they want that trail closed. I don't know that the Rancheria has taken a position yet, but so many discussions have happened. So I know this is a little long-winded, but I guess what I'm coming around to is I would like to hear public comment, but I am of a mind that, at least for me, my personal position at this point would be to restrict trail use in alignment with the insurance regulations. So not to open the trail, but to restrict use, to caution that there is unstable ground and not put any trail signage, but for all intents and purposes, the trail would be restricted. Basically, locals would know to use it and could use it. It would not be closed, and our insurance company could potentially cover it. So I'm just going to throw that out there as something that's in the back of my mind. I know it's anyway. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'm one of the newbies, so could you explain a little more why the locals did not want to proceed
At the
at
time.
that point? Yes.
So I guess in a nutshell, it was the fear of it being over-engineered because Caltrans came in and, they were providing the funding and the engineers and, came in and said, we want a big retaining wall. There was going to be a lot of soil disturbance.
Well, the funding required the trail to be a certain width and to be able to accommodate multiple modes of transportation, so pedestrians and basically bikes. And so therefore the trail, originally the concept was to have a footpath, but because of the funding source, it ended up being 8 feet wide and lots of extra stuff that was required for the funding. So the money was there, but it required us to build something that was not in the city's original concept of what a hiking path would look like. It would basically, you could have 2 lanes. I mean, it was quite large.
Okay, so deciding not to do that, the alternative was to shut it down for 5 years?
At the time, the trail was moving downhill, and so it wasn't safe in its current situation. And so unfortunately, the only funding that was available at the time just didn't meet the needs of the trail. And so we, as a city, decided, let's not take the $750,000 because then we're going to build something we don't want. And look for other
so
options. At the time, look for other options. And then lots of other input came in, but that's why the trail, it was quite.
That was the council,
It was quite extensive. Yeah.
And as a result, nothing, it froze.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just continued to slide and it's not in great shape now. And I would argue that, as Jack and I have talked about this as trail runners. I mean, I wouldn't run down that trail in its current state. And I think I'm still a little bit agile.
It would be tough to run if we were in our 30s.
Yeah. So I don't think it's in great shape at all.
No.
But I also appreciate the public comments that we've received where people say, we're still using it every day, which kind of begs the question, what's the impact, right? If you're using it anyway, but let's set that aside. And anyway, I find it kind of frustrating too, as you can probably tell. So I think we want to do what's best for everyone involved. Anyway, so let me just stop there and see if there are any public comments. And I'll talk at once.
Mr. Bruce, I know. Yeah.
I know there are public comments in the room. Okay, Bryce.
Okay, it's me again. And I just wanted to mention also, my recollection was that back when the heavy duty design was rejected, the tribes had significant concerns about that project too, because of the driving, deep piling into the ground and so forth. So
That's very true.
People that like the over engineering. I'll start with saying I'm so glad that our insurance company seems to be finally coming around. Because, all the dirt trails around here need maintenance from time to time. It is possible to fix them, and it also is possible to just put up signs and say, use at your own risk, and then it's pretty much covered. So that's a major step forward in my mind. And I also tend to agree with Mayor Kelly that another extension of 3 or 6 months so that we can have some more meetings is not going to accomplish anything. Everybody's already staked out their territory, what they want out of this. It's time for the city to decide, is that trail an important cultural resource to Trinidad or not? Just as the Axel Ingram Memorial Trail is a cultural resource to the Yurok people, the Benwick Trail is part of the Trinidad culture. And we can take care of that. We need to, keep it going. In 5 years, you can't consider that a temporary closure. I put a court case for you in my written comments where they said 3 years can't be considered a temporary anything for 3 years. So We've consulted enough. It's time for the tribal interests to just let us go ahead and fix our trail with some light work, some hand tool work. We could have that thing going in a couple of weeks, in a much safer condition than it is now. Not great, but every year it would have to be looked at. But people can get back to using it. And especially the locals, because I'm one of them and my family. But I know the tourists really like using that trail also. It's a nice shortcut for people walking around town. So let's get on with fixing it. The appeal should be denied. And also for the technical reasons that I put in my paper, Eli, I believe, said that our codes define a person as a public corporation, but I see nothing. The closest it comes, and I'm talking about section 1.04.010, which is in the section on definitions at the beginning of our municipal code. It says that club, comma, company, comma, corporation, comma, business, trust, comma. It doesn't say a public corporation. It doesn't say a municipal corporation, which is what Trinidad is. So they never intended that the word person should also include, and that's an oversight. We can fix that. And that's going to be one of the first things I recommend.
Yeah.
When I take my seat on the council, is that we fix that oversight so that the council can appeal to itself from the planning commission.
Yeah.
But how can we expect other people to follow the municipal code if we don't follow it ourselves? That's a threat to democracy when government takes power onto itself that it's not entitled to under its governing documents, whether it's Congress, under the Constitution, or a local government under its municipal codes.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Okay.
So I hope you're not going to be complicit in an abuse of democracy right here in Trinidad.
I do not want that at all. All right, thank you. Thank you, Bryce.
That as well. I submitted written public comment that I hope you all have. I'm concerned. I think it's great to have G2G meetings with the tribe, with the ranch area. My understanding has always been Denwick Street and the trail area or city of Trinidad right. And since when is a tribal entity to decide what a city does with their own right of way? And I keep hearing that we need to have another G2G meeting. I keep hearing that the Yurok tribe is opposed to reopening the trail. Ancestral Society is on record is opposed to reopening the trail. What's another meeting going to accomplish, another G2G meeting, with two entities that are on record as saying, don't open the trail? It's been going on for 5-6 years. Maybe you heard Bryce, you heard other members of the community for 5 years saying we need to get the trail reopened. Now the community is using the trail. It wants the trail reopened, but yet your tribe doesn't want the trail reopened. The Ancestral Society doesn't want the trail reopened. Who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to the citizens, or are we going to listen to the tribal entities? The concerns that I've heard have been about cultural resources. The city's been down there digging multiple times now. Back when the water lines and sewer lines were emergency repair work was done, I was down there that day. I talked to the people down there working. I talked to the cultural monitor that was down there. I asked Eli to request the cultural monitor's report. You remember that, Eli? What was the response? Oh, we can't give you that information. That's privilege. Yet nobody has come forward and said, there's actually cultural resources there. If you look at the old pictures, there's a picture that was in the Museum Society's newsletter that came out earlier this year. Shows Van Wyck Road right up the bluff. That picture was taken back, what, like 1905 or something. That trail is right in that exact alignment. So I'm just saying the city needs to reclaim its own right of way. If Edward Street had a problem, a Van Wyck and a Van Wyck, this sinkhole opened up on the side of Edward Street, what's the city going to do? Are they going to go for 5 years and not fix it because the tribe says there's cultural resources there? I don't think so. I think the city's going to fix that. I think the city's been derelict in its duty to fix the Van Wyck Trail. We need to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire, did you want to ask?
Yeah, just a procedural question. So we're appealing the planning commission's appeal, and are we going to do a vote on that?
Yes, so as soon as we're done with the public comments, which we're almost, I think we're just about wrapping up, then it will come back to the council and we'll decide whether or not to overturn the planning commission's decision. The planning commission chose not to extend the CDP, not to extend the closure. So we have essentially appealed that decision to the council so the council can discuss whether we should go ahead and renew that CDP and keep the trail closed longer in order to have time to have further government to government discussions. Do you guys agree with that? Staff and council agree with that description? Okay.
And will it have like a 3-month or
TBD? Trevor, you're asking for, they were asking for 6 months or a year or 3 months?
The planning commission staff was asking for 6 months, just to be safe. It's hard to get anything done in 3 months. But, you know, based on the public comments and based on some recent input from the insurance company, we think 3 months might be enough. And so that's what we're suggesting, but they're with an option to extend it for another 3 months if necessary.
And the current expires October 22nd.
The current closure would expire October 22nd.
That help. Yeah, let me just make sure that were there any other public comments? Okay. I don't
And
see.
before council
Yes,
talks, I'd like to
please.
talk.
Yes, go ahead.
So we're asking for 3 months. Yes, it's been a while. We've done a variety of different things, from the Caltrans possible fix to reaching out to all the parties that we could think of to find what kind of solution we could reach. So council, a few meetings ago, went ahead and appointed both Steve Ladwick and Jack West to a G2G. And as they're saying, we'd like to prioritize this. They're going to clear their schedules to get this done. This is our opportunity to basically have what I would consider a last-ditch effort, where we could reach out to both the Yurok tribe and the Chura Ancestral Society and find out the two things that we've been talking about for a while, meaning improvements to the existing path of the trail or taking the trail upslope. Ask them for input as to specifically what would be the concern with either path. And if they don't have buy-in with that path, then we'd have to go down the path of what the insurance company is saying, which is basically no improvements to get city trail liability in place, which means that even the failed existing improvement be removed. So what I'm suggesting is hopefully maybe we can find some common ground to make some kind of an improvement. But if there is no common ground for an improvement, then we're just going to remove the failed improvement and we're going to put up a sign that doesn't say trail, but like you said, you know, caution, beware, unstable ground. So anyway, I just felt that we might as well take advantage of a 3-month period, which may be quite less of a time than 3 months, meaning once we do have these meetings we can come to the next council meeting. And if it could be November, that would be great. Otherwise, it maybe would be December. But ideally, then we would come back to the council, say, you know, we did have the discussions. This is the possibilities, yes or no. And then we'll go down one path or the other, either improvements or no improvements. That's why I'm hoping that maybe we could find some common ground for improvements, which would make the trail a little bit better. Otherwise, it would be in the condition it's in now, without the existing failed improvement of the retaining wall.
Have another public comment. I'm gonna pause the council discussion and go to public comment. A question?
Yeah, as to why, if the tribes won't agree to any work we want to do there, why there would be, we can't do anything.
So what do you think?
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hear that?
Yeah, the answer is because of our insurance. So the insurance, if we made, no, at least this is the conversation I had with them. Basically, if we removed any improvement and basically returned the land to its natural state, then the trail immunity would kick in. It would be as if someone just walked the path anywhere where it's not improved, you know, just some kind of a hillside or whatever. Then the
Okay,
trail.
let me just interject then. So,
Yeah.
so then by that reasoning, the repairs that we made to the bottom of the Wagner Street Trail down to Old Home Beach, we don't have trail immunity for that.
No.
But we made improvements.
I'm gonna have to pause this discussion, you guys, because we're getting in a back and forth, and it was a public comment. We have your question, Bryce, if you don't mind, and point taken.
I really want to understand this, because when I'm sitting up there, I need to be able to understand
Yes.
the reasoning behind what we're doing.
Yes, understood.
So we would have.
I can't travel back and forth.
Afterwards. We would have trail immunity if we have an improvement that the insurance company feels like is a proper improvement.
Okay.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at, that's why if we looked at upslope or getting something in the existing path that would work, that would be great.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So there's.
Trevor, were you trying to?
So, yeah, I think the G2G meeting is twofold purpose. So there's this idea of the potential for a last ditch effort to find common ground. But, you know, I'm not super hopeful that that's gonna be what is found. And so, but I think then the city council needs to understand why they want the trail closed. So and I think that's really one of the things that the public's frustrated, staff doesn't understand. They requested that it be closed. We understand has to do with the location, but we don't know what that means. And so I think it's important for the city council to understand what that means. And then you can make an informed decision for the long term, whether you're going to permanently close the trail or whether you're going to pursue repairs. So, you know, I think there's this short-term idea of, okay, we could just cut off the improvements at the ground and let it quietly reopen without doing anything. It doesn't require a post-development permit. Once you start getting into, okay, we want to keep this open long-term, we're going to start doing repairs. That's going to require post-development permits. Those can be appealed by the tribes. You know, it's going to be objected to by the tribes. So again, I think you need to be informed to make that decision of whether that's what you're going to pursue or so I think it's a twofold.
So can I ask a quick timing question, and then I'd like to hear what the council thinks, but October 22nd is when we would need the CDP. We have a city council meeting that night. How quickly,
On the 22nd.
if we said, do we have a meeting on the 22nd, October meeting?
We don't have one scheduled, but we could.
That is our normally scheduled, okay,
That would be our normalized.
our second, yeah.
Yeah, so what I was getting at is, I mean, I think you know what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, if we said, we have the G to G, because I want to believe, I want to be inclusive. I want to hear the reasons and I want the tribes to weigh in. It's important to me. I think of community in a broader sense. I think of community as all of the folks who live here and the, you know, the tribal, the indigenous folks who lived here before. And so I want them to be comfortable too, to the extent possible, but we can clearly not please everyone with this. So anyway, so where I was headed was October 22nd, we have a meeting. If we agreed tonight to not overturn the planning commission's decision, then October 22nd, based on the G to G discussions that you have in the next 2 weeks, we could have the information we would need to then go ahead and extend it if we wanted to. Does that make sense? So I feel like we need that information to make the decision.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's as if we can get those meetings scheduled that quickly.
Yeah.
That's 2 weeks from today. From past experience, and Trevor can probably, verify, it's difficult to get, groups like that together and schedules and everything within 2 weeks.
So if we didn't extend the CDP tonight and you didn't have those meetings, we would just revert to the lowest common denominator, which is the caution sign, the insurance would cover us. Yeah. Okay. Please, others.
Comments? Okay, so if we decide not to continue, what happens to the trail? Why can't we still have meetings beyond that point and come back to this? What happens to continuing or saying, well, the trail's closed, we're going to continue to meet, see if we can discuss.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. The main thing is, first of all, once the insurance company told me it had to be closed, I just felt that the city should not be liable for anything that happens there. So as a result, I'm never comfortable with saying, yeah, let's open something when the insurance is saying we're not going to protect you. So that's why ultimately it was really the insurance company that made the decision, the Joint Powers Authority, which has 50 cities. Even if we wanted to be bold and whatever, we're also jeopardizing the other 49 cities because everybody in the pool pays for whatever happens and any lawsuits and everything. We all pay for it. Trevor, do you have a response to that would help Jack's question?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're in a little bit of, we have some unknowns right now. I think maybe we need a little bit more clarification from the insurance. But I think so you could continue this discussion to the October meeting if you want to go ahead and chat. But if you made a decision, then you have to renotice and things. So, but if you did nothing and let it expire, I think that's an option. I think you could do that, and you could direct Public Works off that needs to be cut off. Do you want to move forward with that? We haven't, I think it would be nice to at least inform the ancestral site and the Iraq tribe of your intentions, even if you don't have a meeting before then. So that's a short amount of time to do that. But that wouldn't require coastal development permit. So I think that's, you could let the vote to let the planning commission's decision stand. The closure would expire on and directs Public Works staff to cut that improvement off, and then direct staff, I guess, to just inform the tribes that that's what we're doing and let it expire. But I think you are running the risk of making your GG meeting a little harder, probably because it might cause some higher distrust.
Okay.
I looked at my calendar. Our December meeting is December 10th. Today we're October 8th. So that's basically 2 months and 2 days. So I'm retiring, so I might not be here, much longer. And Jack and Steve, are not running for reelection, and they're the ones who are going to go to this G2G. So what I'm getting at is I'm thinking that we basically almost have a deadline of basically 2 months and 2 days, which I'm suggesting that we have the extension just go until the meeting in December 10th. And then we would have it on the agenda for the council. The council then can vote what they want to do. Hopefully we'll have input from the Churai and the UROC that the two council members and myself can share. And then we can make a little bit more informed decision, like Trevor was saying. We haven't been able to find out why, there is an objection. That's why it's like, okay, is it on the upper path? Is it in the regular path? What is the issue? Whatever it is, it'll help us make a more informed decision.
Right, so you've heard the arguments and positions. What do you think, you guys?
I mean, I was not going to do this, but I make a motion that we do exactly what Eli said, that we, and help me out, because these triple negatives always get me off. I make a motion that we approve the appeal, therefore extending the closure of the trail till the December meeting. Did I get that right? Approving the appeal, therefore, the appeal that, not the second appeal, the first, I guess there's only one appeal. Appeal of the planning commission denial to extend the temporary closure.
Would that be 3 months that you're except for?
I'm saying till the December meeting, like.
Can we do that?
None of this.
That would essentially be from October 22nd to the December 8th meeting, right? So
Just until
so it's about
Yep.
A month and a half.
month and a half.
Yeah.
I would just say 2 months, because there's appeal periods after.
And if I'm missing appeal language, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 months, then if you have to reschedule.
Sure, 2 months. I'm trying to not extend it.
But yes,
Right.
it would be,
Very
you
long.
would
Yeah.
be upholding the appeal and overturning the planning commission's decision.
Yes. That is my motion. I'm just one person. So,
Are you saying upholding Eli's appeal
yes.
and not
Approving the appeal would
give us good time?
give us a couple of months.
Now, I hate to be kind of sick of it. We're saying 2 months. We're looking at December 10th, which is over 2 months, but do we need to?
Well, no, less than 2 months from, technically from October 22nd, even though we're
From
looking
October
at.
22nd, we
Yeah.
have 2 months, December 26th.
Yeah, and so ideally we'd have it at October, have it from now until December 10th, ideally.
Yeah. But if 2 months from the current extension.
Yeah.
Or current closure of October 22nd, whatever sort of process wise makes everybody at these tables here happy, it's fine.
Is that to get the G to G?
Yeah, to allow the G to G, and my position has been clear the entire time. I share the frustration. I share it from my perspective. I'm also grateful that there's respect going back and forth with these disagreeing points of view. And I would look at this, I know there's a lot of I's in these statements, but I would look at this as sort of the way to know that we made a decision with every effort to make that decision fully informed. That's all. That's all.
I'm not sure how to second that, but whatever said, in all the words, I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thinking? So I love the idea. Yeah, I just have to make a comment before I vote, but I love the idea of the inclusive G to Gs. And I'm not in no way hesitating, because I think we shouldn't do G to Gs and get input. It's just that I feel like we did many, many times, and it hasn't been, and we haven't gotten to the bottom of it for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but I will vote yes to give us the time to give it one last try to really come up with a solution. And then I think, yeah, that's all I have to say,
And
I guess.
if the vote's done, I mean, just to echo what Eli said, right? Let's be 100% transparent, right? In December, it's a new group, new city manager and 2 new councilors. That's also an opportunity. So this is in essence, my interest in seeing this thing through. And thank you for supporting it.
Thanks for making a motion.
Just deciding what exactly we're going to be asking for. What we're hearing is that we need to sort of stand as a city and say, this is a Humboldt trail, and the city wants this thing to be open, and maybe to make that also part of this argument, because we made it, I think, a lot in saying, listen to the tribes, and I appreciate you trying to give us important things, but also the city needs to step in and say, this is important. So as a city, we need to have this trail open. I think we really need to make sure that's a part of this.
Yeah. And I think, for me, it's also been either, make a decision, like we need to make a decision. If we're going to close it, we close it, and we just, we're done. We've closed it as a city. We've made that decision for these good reasons. And maybe not everybody likes it, or we're opening it and we're making it passable and reasonably safe. And would I prefer the latter? Yes. But anyway, but I also don't want to, if we find out that there are some really serious cultural concerns, that's a different story. Then we would want to discuss that. I think. Okay. All right. That was a good one. Anybody need candy?
How about a nap?
I had, yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's shake it off.
Let's just get it. Come on.
I mean, you can tell I have a dog.
There. On the table.
It's on the table.
You thought you were just teasing.
That's because you.
Okay, so the next is a discussion decision proclaiming September as Septic Smart Month. And I will turn it over to Jennifer. Is that you presenting? So tell us about Septic Smart. Good job.
Hello, everybody. I am here to give you guys just an update on the septic program and where we're at. This is actually September is Septic Awareness Month, which is recognized by the EPA. And this is going to be our 3rd year that we declared Septic Smart Week, which was in September. So when we started off the program in 2022, so 2 years ago, we had 27% of the town was permitted with their OWTS permits.
That's the orange circle.
Thank you. The orange and circle on the very top graph. And then last year when we were working through the program, we were at 61%. And this year, as of October 1st, in 2024, I'm happy to report that we are about 80%. For WTS permits, so we are working steadily towards that. So that is where we're at as a town. That is due to great homeowner response cooperation with our homeowners who have been working towards that for us. So that is due to the hard work of all of our homeowners. So that is where we are at with that.
And if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer, it's about 220 homes that need septic, or are some of these, because I always hear there's about 220 homes, water hookups in the city. Does that also mean there's about 220 septic permits?
It's about 200. Yeah.
200, okay.
Mhm.
Trying to wrap my head around 14% is how many? So that's about 28 homes that are,
people, yeah.
okay, it's awesome.
But it could be, the no permit could be that they're in process.
they're in the process still, or, yeah, they're in process still, or we're still working with them. We still have some property owners who are not cooperating for one reason or another. We also have some who are in process, or we're still waiting for additional documentation. We have a small group that we need to work on some additional encouragement for cooperation.
Is there a fine involved when they don't?
There's not a fine per se, there are enforcement action that we could consider taking. We're working on individual cases. We did have some success, couple success stories when we got our building official involved to do some hand delivering of notices that were returned by the postal service and different things. And then we had some success with that. So that was a good outcome with those.
Yeah.
The lessons we're kind of learning with new residential people in town, as people are filling out the questionnaires, we're finding that people are trying to get more bedrooms out of their homes than they may necessarily have, just for the increased value of real estate transactions. Which we don't necessarily have the files for all of the homes in Trinidad, and even those that we do. Trevor can speak a little bit more to that. We're trying to do as much documentation as we can on those, but it's kind of a whack-a-mole situation. People have offices that they wish were bedrooms. They have outside units that used to be a bedroom, maybe back in the day, that they are wishing could still be a bedroom, things like that. We are also seeing an increase in water usage in some of our commercial businesses, so we're looking at that as well. Right now, so some additional things we're kind of finding out through the subject program management that are kind of offshoots of different issues that are coming to light during this program as well. So we're finding out different things as well.
Is there anything the council can do to help you enforce some of this? Is there something we can step in and anything we can do to help you? If these people that aren't working to do a better job?
That last 20%.
Yeah.
Thank you. It just takes time. It takes some creativeness, working with Trevor, staff time just takes that. But thank you. I don't think there's anything at this point the council could do. At some point, it will need to come to a decision amongst staff with the city manager if we're going to take the actual traditional enforcement route with people and do that official step, which is certified letters and a very regimented documentation route and go down that path with people. But that doesn't actually involve the council. But thank you.
And I know we're.
That'll be my gift for the next city manager.
I know we're city, but is there a health code? It seems that if you have a failing septic system, we're getting into health code kind of things, but is that, I'm just curious.
Well,
Maybe
we
I'm
don't
getting ahead.
actually necessarily know that they're failing, they just won't get an inspection.
Right, okay.
So. But Trevor, do you have anything to add?
No, yeah, I think, we've been taking the let's cooperate approach. And we have sent out, letters that have bigger and bigger sort of final notice on them and
Bigger
deadlines, a little bit more pushy. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to cross that line at some point. It is the properties or one property owner.
Yeah.
That are outstanding.
Jennifer, every 4 years you have to renew, you have to have an inspection and renew.
It's typically every 3 to 5, depending on the individual system.
Is there some system where you automatically notify people, or how does that happen?
It's set up for automatic renewal in a Google Calendar. set up on the laptop, which will be transitioned over to the next person who takes over the septic program. Right now, I'm still doing those renewals, so we don't get behind.
Could we put the names, or not the names, but the addresses on like the, post office, one of these, thank you for septic. These are the addresses that are not complying. If you know how to get a hold of these people, please contact them to talk to Jennifer in the office.
Exactly, that would be good.
The big frown.
Contact Jennifer. Yeah. Sorry.
I wish. A septic Sue with a frown.
Wanted.
I think it's more, if I may align this trajectory here, let's celebrate the 80%. I mean, looking in 2 years' time, from 27 to 80%, I mean, that is amazing. So let's focus on the 80%, the 200 plus residents who've fallen into.
The septic system is half full.
Yeah, the septic system.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that.
In all seriousness, yeah, yeah, Steve's right. It's really good. Great progress.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, so sometimes my memory doesn't serve me well, there were some concerns about folks whose septic system was closer to creeks and more sensitive areas. And I believe that was where y'all focused your efforts in the beginning, and that's been really addressed. And so another success of this program was not just saying all 220 are equal, like the ones that are more ecologically sensitive were the ones that y'all addressed first. I think that too is worth mentioning. So for such a small little community, it was a great effort. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thanks very much. All right, the next discussion topic is the November general election update.
So November's right around the corner. In the election, I believe everybody has received their voter information guides.
Yep.
Yes.
And the one thing from our last meeting that we identified was missing from that voter information guide was the Measure L. Argument and figure. So what we've done, and this was an action item from the last meeting, was we are preparing at the moment, actually, to mail out what you see on the screen here in a postcard format. And it is the measure taken word, the argument, or should I say, it's not an argument, it's a, what do we call it?
It's fact-based.
Fact-based statement, kind of blends the impartial analysis with what the council had written for an argument. Kept it fact-based, and so we're gonna be mailing this document. This is a 2-spread on 1 sheet here to that. Something different that this version we discovered today, we're removing this message at the bottom where it says this message was approved for mailing by Minnesota City Council. City attorney felt that would be best to just take it off, just to remove any smell of advocacy. So as you see, everyone in this room and in the city limits is going to be receiving one of these, whether they're registered voters in Trinidad or not. And that's probably going to arrive in your mailboxes this weekend, hopefully in time for people to receive it and then return their ballots. Some people are right on target with their ballots. I don't think we've received our ballots yet. Have we sample ballots? I think we just received the voter information guide.
I think I just got the guide.
Yeah. So this will be arriving in mailboxes, all Trinidad residents by this weekend. And then we're off to the races. We're coasting now until the election. And one of our candidates here is in the room for city council, Mr. Bryce Kenny, will be running unobjected, along with Carrie Varela. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. And once we get the results, just so everyone knows, we discussed this, Bryce and I discussed it a few weeks ago, how that works. And for the council members that are up here who are anxious to sign off, there's a couple different ways to do it. And because of the county's certification process, they're allowed, I believe it's 30 days from the date of the election to certify the results. And typically that falls, depending on our city council meeting dates, we have to certify the county certified results. Once that occurs, then we can seat our council members. I think several agencies, bigger agencies, they wait till January. We oftentimes don't waste any time. You know, December is when we read the administer the oath of office to the new candidates. The outgoing candidates will attend the meeting and then they're welcome to stick around or leave. So, barring any odd ones, I think, we're on track for a successful election, and I guess we'll just see where Measure L falls. But, no further actions required other than the vote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Any questions for Gabe? All right, any questions from the public on either Measure L or Septic Sue? Okay. All right, I'll bring it back to the council then. I believe, other than future agenda items, is there anything anyone wants to tee up for future? Okay. I mean, we have a list, I think, from the last two meetings, so. Okay, then let's go ahead and adjourn. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.